The biodome hummed with artificial life when Ethan Ross first heard the crying. It was soft, musical, like wind chimes sobbing in a storm. He set down his soil analyzer and listened harder. The sound came from behind the moonflower vines, those purple blooms that only opened at night and smelled like distant memories. Research. Outpost Veridion was supposed to be quiet. That was the point. 12 light years from Earth, orbiting a small planet called Haven's Edge, the station existed to study alien flora without interference. Ethan had volunteered for the isolation after losing his medical license on Earth. Nobody asked questions out here. Nobody cared about past mistakes when you are the only xenobiologist for 6 sectors. The crying continued. Ethan pushed through the vines carefully, his boots silent on the moss carpet he'd grown himself. The biodome was his sanctuary, every plant placed with purpose, every ecosystem balanced like music. He didn't like disturbances. What he found stopped his heart completely. She was tiny, maybe 4 inches tall, curled against the crystalline trunk of a starfruit tree. Her skin shimmered with opalescent pink and lavender hues that shifted with her breathing. Silver wings, translucent as soap bubbles, were folded against her back. One wing was torn, leaking luminescent fluid that pooled beneath her like liquid starlight. She looked up at him with eyes the color of amethysts. And Ethan saw fear transform into terrified resignation. "Please," she whispered in perfect English, her voice small but clear. "Please don't send me back." Ethan knelt slowly, making himself smaller, less threatening. His medical training kicked in automatically, cataloging injuries, even as his mind struggled to process what he was seeing. Torn wing, probable fracture. Exhaustion evident in her trembling. Dehydration shown by the dullness of her skin patterns. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said quietly. "My name is Ethan. I'm a doctor. Will you let me help?" She studied him for a long moment, and Ethan felt something strange. Like being read. Like she could see through his skin to whatever lived beneath. Finally, she nodded. "Sienna," she said. "My name is Sienna. I'm from Veridion, the 4th moon of the red giant in this system. And they're coming for me." Ethan's research module became an emergency medical bay. He fashioned instruments from equipment meant for plant samples, working with tweezers and microscopes to clean and seal the tear in Sienna's wing. She was brave, fighting back cries of pain that would have shattered him if she'd let them out fully. He worked as gently as possible, his hands surprisingly steady, despite the absolute strangeness of the situation. "Why are they hunting you?" he asked as he worked. "Your people, I mean." Sienna closed her eyes. When she opened them again, they glowed brighter. "Because I have the sight, I can see emotional auras. The truth of what people feel, what they hide, what they truly are. My people killed everyone who had this gift 300 years ago. They thought they'd eliminated the genetic trait. But it appeared in me." "That doesn't sound dangerous," Ethan said, applying a synthetic sealant to the wing membrane. "That sounds useful. Truth is always dangerous to those who rule with lies." Her voice was bitter for one so small. "When I was young, I saw things I shouldn't have. Saw the corruption in our leadership. Spoke about it. They've been hunting me for 2 years. I've been running across planets, hiding, surviving. I thought this station was abandoned." "Almost abandoned," Ethan corrected. "Just me and the plants, usually." "You're safe here." "No." Sienna shook her head, and her silver hair caught the light like threads of moonbeam. "Nowhere is safe. They tracked me here. They'll arrive within hours. And when they do, they'll destroy anyone who helped me." Ethan finished sealing the wing and sat back. Through the microscope, he could see his handiwork. Not perfect, but she would heal. He looked at this tiny, brave creature who had crossed star systems while wounded, alone, hunted. Something in his chest tightened. "Then I'll tell them to leave," he said simply. Sienna laughed, but it was sad. "You don't understand. Commander Draxon leads the hunting party. He's killed dozens to find me. He won't stop because one human says no. Then he'll have to go through me." Ethan stood, his jaw set. "I took an oath once. To do no harm. To protect those who need protecting. I broke that oath on Earth, made mistakes that cost lives. But I'm not making that mistake again. You're under my protection now, Sienna of Veridion." The ships arrived 3 hours later. They were beautiful silver crescents that looked like moons themselves, hanging in the void above the station. Ethan watched them on his monitors as Sienna hid in his quarters, her injured wings still too weak for flight. The communication came through harsh and demanding. Commander Draxon's face filled the screen. He was Veridion like Sienna, but tall, nearly 8 inches, with midnight blue skin and wings of black glass. His eyes held no mercy. "Human researcher, you harbor a criminal of Veridion. Surrender her immediately, and you will be spared." Ethan crossed his arms. 20 years ago, he'd faced down combat situations in the Terran medical corps. He'd stared at death and blinked first, which cost him everything. But this time felt different. This time, something worth protecting sat in his quarters, watching him with those amethyst eyes. "No," he said clearly. "She's under my protection. Leave my station." Draxon's expression didn't change. "You have 72 hours to reconsider. After that, we will take her by force and destroy this station as an example. Think carefully, human. Is one tiny creature worth your life?" The screen went dark. Behind him, Ethan heard the soft flutter of wings. Sienna had flown to his desk, landing gently despite her injury. She looked up at him, and for the first time since he'd found her, she smiled. "You're either very brave or very foolish," she said. "Probably both." Ethan offered his hand, and she stepped onto his palm. Her weight was nearly nothing, but holding her felt like holding something precious, irreplaceable. "But I meant what I said. You're safe here." As she settled in his hand, her skin patterns shifted to warm gold. Without the sight, Ethan couldn't see auras. But he didn't need to. He could see the truth in her eyes. And maybe, just maybe, she could see the same in his dot. The 72-hour countdown had begun. The first night passed in strange companionship. Ethan converted one of his specimen containers into a room for Sienna, filling it with soft moss and gentle lights. She refused to sleep, instead perching on the edge of his desk while he worked through diplomatic channels, trying to find legal precedents for asylum. "It won't work," she said quietly, watching him type. "Veridion has treaties with most governments. They'll extradite me the moment Draxon files the proper forms. Then we change the narrative." Ethan leaned back, rubbing tired eyes. "We make this about more than one person. We expose why they're really hunting you." Sienna's wings fluttered nervously. Even injured, they caught the light beautifully. The sight isn't just about seeing emotions. It's about truth. When I look at someone, I see their heart, their real intentions. 3 centuries ago, sight-bearers exposed the corruption in our ruling families, showed the people that their leaders were stealing resources, lying about threats, manipulating them through fear. The revolution was bloody. Thousands died. So the leaders won, Ethan guessed, and they made sure no one with the sight could challenge them again. They created the myth that we were dangerous, that the sight drove people mad, made them violent. They hunted down every bearer and executed them publicly. Made examples. Taught generations to fear the gift rather than value it. Sienna's voice broke slightly. "My mother had the sight too. They killed her when I was small. I've been hiding what I am ever since, until I couldn't anymore." Ethan stood, and walked to the window where she sat. Carefully, he extended one finger. After a moment, Sienna placed her tiny hand on it. The gesture felt monumental somehow. A bridge between worlds. "Show me," he said softly. "Let me see what you see." "It doesn't work that way. I see the auras. You wouldn't understand the colors, the patterns." She hesitated, then smiled sadly. "But I can tell you what I see when I look at you. Tell me." Sienna's eyes began to glow brighter, shifting from amethyst to violet to something that looked like captured starlight. "Your aura is blue and silver. Blue means loyalty, protection, a need to heal what's broken. The silver is regret. Deep regret for something you can't fix. You carry guilt like armor, Ethan Ross. You think you failed someone important, and you've been punishing yourself ever since." Ethan's breath caught. She saw too much. Everything he'd buried. "But there's gold appearing now," Sienna continued, her voice gentle. "Gold means hope. It's small, just threads running through the blue. But it's growing. You're starting to believe you can be the person you wanted to be. That you can save someone this time. Can I?" The question came out hoarse. "Can I save you?" "I don't know." Her hand squeezed his finger with surprising strength for something so small. "But I believe you'll try. Your heart is honest, Ethan. That's rare in any species." The second day brought planning. Sienna told him everything about Veridion culture, their technology, their weaknesses. Ethan recorded it all, building a case. But more than that, they talked. Really talked. About Earth and its blue oceans that Sienna had never seen. About Veridion and its crystal forests that sang in the wind. About dreams and fears and the strange loneliness of being different. Do you know what the hardest part was? Sienna asked during their third meal together. Ethan had prepared tiny portions of fruit, and she ate delicately, her manners precise. Not the running, not the fear. It was the isolation, being the only one who could see truth while everyone else lived in comfortable lies. It makes you feel crazy, like maybe you're the problem. You're not crazy. Ethan watched her from across the table, fascinated by every movement. "You're extraordinary." She looked up at him, and something passed between them. Something neither had words for yet. "Can I ask you something?" Her voice was smaller than usual. "What did you do? On Earth? What mistake haunts you?" Ethan was quiet for a long moment. Then he told her. About the military hospital. About the young soldier who came in with injuries that seemed minor. About how Ethan had been overworked, exhausted, and he'd missed the signs of internal bleeding. About how the soldier died on the table while Ethan tried desperately to save him. About the investigation, the license revocation, the guilt that followed him across the stars. "I was supposed to see what others couldn't," he finished. "That was my job. And I failed." Sienna flew across the table, a journey of mere feet that took courage with her healing wing. She landed on his hand, and without hesitation, she walked up his arm to his shoulder. There, barely inches from his face, she placed both tiny hands on his cheek. "Your aura just went dark blue," she whispered. "Like deep water. That's grief. But Ethan, there's no black. Black means cruelty, intentional harm. You made a mistake. That's different. That's human. Is it enough? Being human? Making mistakes? It has to be." She smiled, and it transformed her face. "Because perfection is a lie. I've seen the auras of those who claim perfection. They're the darkest of all. You, with all your regret and guilt and determination to do better, your heart is brighter than you know." He raised his other hand slowly, giving her time to move if she wanted. But she didn't. She let him cup his palm around her, protective and gentle. She was so small, so fragile. But looking into those eyes, Ethan saw strength that shamed his own. "When this is over," he said quietly, "when you're safe, will you stay? With you? With me, here, on this station. There are 1,000 plants that need studying. I could use an assistant with the site, someone who can tell me which specimens are thriving and which are just pretending." He was rambling, nervous. "Someone who can see the truth of things." Sienna's wings spread slightly, catching the light. Her skin patterns shifted to that warm gold he was learning to recognize. Joy, hope, something tender. "Are you asking because you need an assistant?" Her voice held teasing warmth. "Or because you're starting to care about a tiny alien girl who crash-landed in your garden?" "Both," he admitted. "Definitely both. Though the caring part is growing exponentially faster than the assistant part." She laughed, and the sound filled something in Ethan's chest he hadn't known was empty. "Then yes. When this is over, I'll stay. But Ethan, we need to survive the next day first. And for that, we need proof. Real proof that the site isn't dangerous. That my people have been lied to for centuries. How do we prove something to people who don't want to see?" Sienna's eyes gleamed with sudden fire. "We make them see. We broadcast the truth so loudly they can't ignore it. And I think I know how." The final day arrived with a plan that was either brilliant or suicidal. Probably both. Ethan had contacted every news outlet, every diplomatic channel, every independent broadcaster in 6 sectors. At exactly noon, he would activate a live transmission. Sienna would use the site on Commander Draxon himself during their confrontation, revealing the truth of his intentions for all the galaxy to witness. It was dangerous. It was desperate. It was their only chance. As the ships descended toward the station, Ethan found Sienna in the biodome. She stood among the moonflowers, her wings now healed enough to flutter gently. She looked ethereal, like something from a dream. "I'm scared," she admitted when he approached. "Not of dying, of failing, of all those who suffered because of the lies continuing to suffer." Ethan knelt beside her, bringing himself to her level. "Then we don't fail. Simple as that." "Simple as that," she echoed, smiling. Then, with sudden boldness, she flew up to his face and pressed her tiny hands to his lips. A kiss scaled to her sighs. His heart nearly stopped. "For luck," she whispered. "And for what comes after." The transmission began. The world was watching, and Commander Draxon was at the door. The airlock hissed open, and Commander Draxon entered with 6 armed guards. They were all Veridion, all warriors, all committed to completing their mission. But Ethan stood his ground in the center of the biodome, with Sienna perched on his shoulder where everyone could see her. "Your time is up." "Human," Draxon announced, his voice carrying the weight of authority. "Surrender the criminal, or face the consequences." "The galaxy is watching, Commander." Ethan gestured to the 12 cameras he'd set up, their lights blinking red for active transmission. "Maybe you'd like to explain to everyone exactly what crime Sienna committed. What's so dangerous about seeing the truth?" Draxon's expression darkened. "She possesses an illegal genetic modification. The site was outlawed after the Chaos Wars. It makes bearers unstable, violent. We're protecting our people." "Liar." Sienna's voice was small but clear, amplified by the transmission equipment Ethan had rigged. "You're protecting your power. Let me prove it. Let me use the sight on you right now, Commander. Let everyone see what I see. If I'm truly dangerous, if the sight truly causes madness, it will be obvious. But if I show only truth, if I reveal what you're really hiding, then the galaxy will know who the real criminal is." The challenge hung in the air. Draxon could refuse, but that would look like cowardice. He could attack, but millions were watching. He was trapped by his own mythology. "Very well," he said finally. Use your corrupted gift. Show everyone your madness. Sienna's eyes began to glow, brighter than Ethan had ever seen, bright enough that the entire biodome seemed to pulse with violet light. She looked at Commander Draxon, and her voice rang out with absolute clarity. Your aura is red and black. Red for rage, black for cruelty. But there's more. There's gray, the color of fear. You're terrified, Commander. Terrified that people will learn the truth. That the Chaos Wars were started by your ancestors to cover up their crimes. That Sightbearers didn't cause violence. They exposed it. They showed your great-grandfather stealing from the colonies. Showed your family line built on lies and stolen wealth. Shut up. Draxon lunged forward, but his guards hesitated. They were watching the transmission feeds, seeing their commander's face twisted with rage that proved Sienna's words. The Sightbearers were murdered to silence them, Sienna continued, her voice gaining strength. Every generation, your family has hunted down anyone who might expose the truth. You're not protecting Veridion. You're protecting your dynasty. Your corruption. Your lies. She's manipulating you. Draxon shouted to the cameras, to his guards, to anyone who would listen. This is what the Sight does. It plants false visions, spreads paranoia. Then why are you so angry? Ethan asked calmly. If she's lying, laugh it off. Prove her wrong. But you can't, because everything she said is true. And now everyone knows it. The transmission feeds exploded with activity. News anchors were confirming historical records. Diplomatic channels were demanding investigations. And on Veridion itself, according to the incoming messages scrolling across Ethan's screen, protests were beginning. The people wanted answers. One of Draxon's guards lowered his weapon. Then another. They looked at their commander with new understanding, with the horror of realizing they'd been serving a lie. Commander Draxon, came a new voice through the communication system. An elderly Veridion woman appeared on screen, her silver hair long and her wings marked with age. This is Council Elder Verina. You are hereby ordered to stand down. The Council is opening a full investigation into these allegations. If the Sightbearer speaks truth, and evidence suggests she does, you will face trial for crimes against our people. Draxon's world crumbled in his expression. Rage gave way to fear, then desperate calculation. He looked at Sienna with pure hatred. This isn't over. Yes, Sienna said quietly. It is. Security forces arrived within hours. Not Veridion warriors loyal to Draxon, but neutral peacekeepers from the Galactic Council. They took Draxon and his guards into custody pending investigation. The galaxy watched as 3 centuries of lies began to unravel. Historical records were examined. Survivors came forward. The truth spread like fire across the stars. On Veridion, the revolution was peaceful but profound. The ruling families were removed from power. A new government formed, one that promised truth and transparency. And Sightbearers, the handful who had survived in hiding, began to emerge. They were celebrated, not feared. Their gift was recognized for what it truly was. A tool for honesty in a universe too comfortable with lies. Ethan watched the news feeds with wonder. They'd done it. One tiny alien girl and one guilty human had changed everything. I can't believe it worked, he said. Sienna sat on his desk, her wings fully healed now and shimmering in the biodome's light. You can't believe that truth wins? Ethan, you have so much to learn. Teach me then. He offered his hand, and she climbed into his palm. The gesture had become natural, comfortable. Right. You're free now. You could go home. Help rebuild Veridion. They need people like you. They do, she agreed. Her skin patterns shifted through a rainbow of colors, emotions too complex for words. But I made a promise. To stay here. With you? If you still want an assistant who can tell you the truth about your plants. And if I want more than an assistant? His heart pounded as he asked. If I want someone who makes me laugh? Someone who sees me clearly and somehow likes what she sees anyway. Someone I'm absolutely ridiculously falling in love with, despite the fact that she's 4 inches tall and from another world? Sienna's glow became almost blinding with joy. Then you're in luck, because that tiny alien girl is falling in love with you too. Has been since you knelt in the biodome and promised to protect her. Since you looked at her like she mattered more than your own life. You do matter more, Ethan said simply. You taught me that I could be worthy again. That mistakes don't define us. That courage is choosing to do right even when you're terrified. She flew up to his face, hovering there with wings that caught every color of light. Then we'll be courageous together. We'll build something new here. A place where truth matters. Where different species can trust each other. Where love doesn't have to make sense to be real. It doesn't make sense, Ethan agreed, smiling. A human and a Veridion. Different sizes, different worlds, different everything. But the same hearts, Sienna finished. She landed on his shoulder, her favorite perch, and pressed close to his neck. The same hope. The same belief that the universe can be better than it is. That's enough, Ethan. That's everything. Outside the biodome windows, stars wheeled in their eternal dance. Ships came and went, bringing diplomats and scientists and journalists who wanted to interview the unlikely heroes. But inside, in the quiet green sanctuary, filled with plants from 100 worlds, Ethan and Sienna built something precious. A partnership. A friendship. A love that defied every reasonable expectation. 3 months later, Ethan received official word that he was being reinstated by the Terran Medical Board. His actions had proven his character. They said he was worthy of his oath again. He declined. His work was here now, studying xenobiology and hosting diplomatic functions and learning to see the universe through the eyes of someone who could see truth itself. Besides, Sienna needed him. The galaxy needed them both, and he needed her more than any license or redemption could offer. No regrets? Sienna asked one evening as they watched the sunset paint the biodome gold and crimson. None, Ethan said honestly. His aura, if she was reading it now, would be pure gold. Pure hope. Pure joy. You? Just one. She grinned mischievously. I regret not crash landing in your garden sooner. He laughed, and the sound echoed through the biodome like music. Somewhere in the distance, the moonflowers were beginning to open, releasing their scent of distant memories. But Ethan wasn't thinking about the past anymore. He was thinking about tomorrow, and the day after, and all the days stretching ahead, days filled with truth and wonder and love that had saved them both. The story of the human and the tiny sight-bearer became legend across the galaxy. They called it a fairy tale, impossible but true. The tale of how one act of courage sparked a revolution. How honesty defeated corruption. How love bridged the spaces between worlds. And in a biodome 12 light years from Earth, surrounded by plants and starlight, 2 unlikely souls proved that sometimes the smallest voice can change everything. All it takes is someone brave enough to listen.